Hi everyone, Endless here, creator of Yavin-based Team League and this channel. Wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the game that's on your screen right now. This is a ladder game of an experimental Rex list I played versus a Rebel armor skew, a game where I lost pretty hard. In general, if you're trying to get better at any game, it's a good idea to find out what went wrong with your game plan at any point in time and see if you can draw lessons out of it. To briefly run down the lists, I'm playing Rex with a generic clone commander, some phase 2s with offensive push, and a full ARC trooper led by Echo. My opponent is playing double T-47 and triple rotary ATRT. My list can't really do consistent or reliable damage to his armored units, and on top of that he has a boatload of repairs, bringing 4 astromechs and R2-D2 for a grand total of 12 additional health points for his armor. In some sense, I've lost in the list building phase because I didn't account for his armor skew. That's a bit of a strange statement, though. Lists in Star Wars Legion are increasingly rock, paper, scissors style. It's actually somewhat rare to encounter what I call a rounder list these days, which should, in theory, be able to cope with a variety of skew lists as well as normal lists with one big hero and a bunch of guns. So I have to question this idea. The only dedicated anti-armor weapons clones have access to are the Phase 1 rocket launcher, which I'm considering adding to my list, the shells on the saber tank, and the rocket launcher on the bark speeder. It seems to me that armor will always be a strong choice against armies that can generate big attack pools that would wipe out, well, anything else that doesn't have armor. Now back to this game. I end up as the red player, and I have to spend one of my battle deck cancels on limited visibility because in theory I want to use Rex's 2-pip, take that clankers on the first turn of the game. We then end up with long march, key positions, and hostile environment, and I realize, hey, I can't actually use take that clankers against any of these targets effectively. I go with standing orders on turn 1 just to delay since I'm already out activated. By 2 against this rebel armor skew, I'm at 9 acts and he's at 11. And I want to close the gap in going last. Now I can't shoot the T-47 since they're way in the back, and if I want to advance on the objective, I have to be comfortable with taking 2 shots from airspeeders to the face. To make matters worse, my opponent is using electro binoculars from his troopers onto his vehicles, which makes them shoot more accurately. In hindsight, I could have measured his T-47's travel distance, plus range 3, and tried to stall, but I think it was too late for that. Long March starts at about 36 inches apart, and with Scouting Party, I've already started the game inside their threat range. And also, since I'm out activated, I don't have enough information during turn 0 to really do that. Taking dodge tokens only sort of helps against the airspeeder's attacks. Also, he's got Surge to crit on his airspeeders and on his rotary ATRTs. So, also for reference, 2 full speed moves and a shoot from a T-47, that's about 39 inches of threat. So even if I didn't Scouting Party, I would be far inside that threat range. I decide to just tank it out on my high defenses. I lose a couple of ARC troopers in the process to this. Cover doesn't really help me either, thanks to the crit surge, the vantage point of T-47s flying over the low-lying cover on this board as well. In my list, I had also taken clone medics for a couple of reasons. 1, I figured I could use the medics to revive fallen ARC troopers, and 2, it would give me an additional dice on the take that clankers turn. So those are great, like, strategic thoughts, but they don't really work when you're out activated and against an armor skew. Medics have a specific timing window for restoring minis. You can only restore a miniature on the turn that it dies. I wasn't able to get the most effective use out of those medic miniatures, and they're expensive, coming in at 20 points each. What would happen is the airspeeders would go last, they would kill my arcs, and the medics would have already done their activation by then, so there was no window in which I could have actually used the medic charges on the intended target. I also took a Comtech and long-range comlink on 5s for direct shenanigans off my clone commander. Turns out that direct off the clone commander does in fact work with long-range comlink. But this was another piece of wasted tech because we ended up with a short edge to short edge deployment, so my opportunities to flank were quite limited. This video might ultimately end up being a long way of saying I got wrecked turn 0, which means I lost, due to some events that happened before any dice even got rolled, but that's kind of a staple feature of wargaming. The game starts before it starts based on what you think your opponent will bring. And against many, many other lists, the list I brought would have been fine. I just happened to run into a skew that was strong against me and I lost to it. I want to give credit, though, to my opponent's airspeeder piloting. He baited my shots with a wedge airspeeder, a tactic I have used myself but rarely fought against. Wedge as a pilot you can exhaust to give him a free pivot. So he used that free pivot to peel off towards R2-D2, who then hooked up that airspeeder with some much needed repairs. And really, due to the plentiful cheap repairs and high offense coming from heavily aimed rebel vehicles, I steadily fell behind on attrition and started to run out of material which should do the objective, which again is key positions. I will say that the high point of the game was when I adapted my tactics to shoot down an airspeeder that got very close to my lines. Normally at 9 activations I wouldn't fire support, since every activation is precious, but Rex has surged to crit. I decided to fire support him with one of those heavy phase 2 units to see if I could force a bunch of saves, and we succeeded, taking down this airspeeder in one shot by dealing 7 wounds to it. It was a bit of a desperation play because I was falling behind on attrition. I had to take a big risk to see if I could actually shoot one of these airspeeders down. The other one had peeled away and gone back to R2, and all that damage I did to it ended up being pretty minimal. I was able to force more critical hits than I expected to, even so, causing my opponent to use up all of his repairs. We took down one airspeeder, and the game ended with the other one critically wounded. But unfortunately, I was out of time to do the objective, and I tapped out on turn 5, knowing that it was late at night. I couldn't put more unit leaders on the middle than my opponent. There was no point in playing it out. There's probably more to say about the game, but this kind of has turned into an article and video format. But I have to ask, did you enjoy it? Do you want me to do more of these videos? And what could I do better or add to make them better? Please make sure to leave a comment, a like if you like the content, and subscribe to the channel. Also, a quick shout out to everyone that's been donating towards a new streaming laptop so I can travel and stream IRL games of Star Wars Legion. You can find that link at streamlabs.com/yavinbase. Thanks for listening, everyone.